One of the first things Jesus says in the Gospel of Mark is an invitation. Follow me. Jesus sets out his message, a call to repentance, to change our ways and to believe in the good news. After that, he begins to invite people to follow him. He encounters Simon and Andrew, and he says to them, "Follow me, I will make you into fishers of men." He does so to Simon and Andrew, but he does that to me and you as well. He picks up along the way James and John, who follow him. He does that to me and you as well. So how do we respond to this invitation from the Lord of Lords, from God made flesh? What do we say to him when he calls us and he says, "Follow me"? If we decide to respond positively and generously to his invitation, then there are two aspects which accompany our following Jesus. The first one is that we leave something behind. And the second is that in return, we are given something new. Something behind, living something. Simon, Andrew, James, and John do exactly that. They physically leave their jobs to follow after Jesus, to physically walk with him where he was going. Now, that invitation for us, what does that mean? To leave something behind like that? I completely understand that that might not be possible physically. We have responsibilities and families and jobs. We can't just leave our employment to live as nomads, following Jesus wherever he calls us. And yet the call to Simon and Andrew is a good image for us as well. It is an image that reminds us that if we follow Jesus, then everything else in our lives should be subordinate to that call. We should reassess our priority and leave those things which impair us from following Jesus. Leave those things behind. It's not always that easy. Our first reading presents us with the prophet Jonah. And if you noticed the reading that we have just seen, Jonah does what the Lord commands. But that is chapter 3 of his book. He has spent 2 chapters before that trying to avoid that call. So it's not always easy. It's not always as straightforward as Simon and Andrew and James and John demonstrate to us. And yet, one of the aspects of following Jesus is leaving things behind, making them subordinate to Christ. Nothing else can have priority over Christ. But then we are given something new. And that comes in terms of a new purpose in life. We have to live as those driven by purpose. And the purpose, the new meaning of life that Christ gives us is to do what he does, to bring his message. The gospel says, fishers of men. Not in the sense that Jesus tells us to go and gather people in big nets so they can't escape. Not in that way. But to go and spread the message of Jesus. To go and invite others to the fullness of life that he brings. To go and to win others for Jesus. To leave something behind and make it subordinate to Christ, and to win others for Christ as our new purpose in life. When we think of these things, we could understand them as the remit of the clergy, or those who have consecrated their lives to the church. But that is not so. The Christian life, our faith, our knowing Christ is not something personal and private. It's something that we must share with others and win others for Christ. So how do we start to do this? Prayerful reading of the Bible is always a good start. But let's start from the very basic. Maybe you know somebody that could benefit from knowing Christ. Somebody in your life that might benefit from knowing Christ. Well then, share your faith with them. Demonstrate to them the joy of knowing Christ. Open up about your experience of faith. And in that way, you will be fishers of people.